Hello everyone, welcome. Welcome to this special session. PO Prelim exams are just around the corner, and I hope all of you are well prepared to take this exam with full guts. Now, so close to the exam, students have a lot of things going in their mind, a lot of confusions, some discouraging thoughts, some encouraging thoughts. But the topmost thing in their mind is, how do we score maximum in that particular paper? That's the topmost thing in your mind at this point, right? So, to help you in that endeavor of yours, we thought of this session of today, where we are going to discuss 3 test taking mistakes that students commonly commit and jeopardize their chances in the exam. Before we move forward, let's understand from where your score comes. Your score comes from 2 things: your knowledge and your test taking capability. Your knowledge is how you can answer the questions, how fast you can answer the questions, your concepts, all of these things are part of your knowledge, right? And you have been working on this for months, so I do not need to talk about this at this point, so close to the exam. Whatever in knowledge you are at this point would remain the same till exam 2, right? So, knowledge is done. Now comes the test taking part. Now, what is test taking? Test taking is your attitude. Test taking is your orientation, the soft part, right? So, in test taking also there are 2 major angles. One is how I approach the paper. Now, on that we have already discussed in the lecture where I had told you about how to analyze mocks, how to find out your capability score in mocks, right? And I had referred the mock analysis sessions that we had taken on YouTube. I hope that you have gone through those lectures, because then you would be clear on this, that what do you need to have as a strategy while you are going for the paper. The second aspect of test taking is that aspect which involves itself with the mistakes that commonly students commit inside the paper and end up jeopardizing their chances in the paper, end up reducing their scores in the paper. Today's target is to know about those mistakes, and not only know about them, today I am also going to tell you how you can avoid those mistakes, right? These mistakes are majorly of 3 kinds. So, we will discuss those 3 mistakes and how we can avoid those 3 mistakes. And at the end, I will also give you a bonus tip which would help you boost your confidence before the exams. So, let's start with mistake number 1. Mistake number 1, daydreaming during the exams. Now, you would say, sir, we don't dream during the exams. We don't get time to solve the questions only. How can we daydream? You see, the issue with these mistakes is that a lot of times we don't know that we are committing those mistakes, right? And this is one of them. I'll tell you how daydreaming manifests itself in your actions. You know, a lot of times what happens that in the first 5, 10, 15 minutes of the paper, you do some amazing number of questions and you are feeling so good about it. So, a positive thought, but an unrelated positive thought creeps into your mind. Thoughts like, oh, I am doing so fine in this paper, I will do well in the whole paper, my parents would be very happy, I would get this job, things like this, right? They are positive thoughts, but they are unrelated to that particular moment, they are unrelated, and we end up giving a couple of minutes to that thought because we are getting a high out of it, we are feeling good about it, therefore we give that. The same thing happens to negative thoughts also. Let's say first 10-15 minutes you are not able to do a lot of questions or you have performed below your expectation, you get demotivated, seriously demotivated. You start thinking about what would happen if you don't clear this exam, what would your parents say, you know, stuff like that. And you don't see that there is so much time left to cover what you have missed. You only focus on what you have missed. So, again, negative thoughts, unrelated negative thoughts, and all of this ends up not only making you lose your focus, but it ends up wasting your time also, right? Another way this problem manifests itself is while you are reading, you have to reread. Okay, so you read it once and then again you are rereading. Now this happens due to two reasons. One is because of this mistake and another is because of another mistake that we will discuss later. But let's focus on this mistake first, that when you are daydreaming or when you are thinking about stuff which are not related to the question solving inside the exam, what happens? You lose focus, you lose concentration, and you then have to reread. Now, how would you avoid committing these mistakes? First of all, knowing it definitely helps. If you know about it, it would help you. Your mind would give you a signal that, boss, you are committing this mistake, stop. So that would help. Now that I have told you this, you would know that, okay, this is happening, sir had told us, so I'll not do this. So that is one. Second, your whole focus should center around question solving. Enjoy the process of doing questions as well as leaving questions. Nothing else matters inside the paper. Inside the paper, when you are, what you would think outside the paper, what your friends would think, what your parents would think, does not matter. What matters is you are enjoying the paper to the whole. You know, let me give you an analogy. I give you an ice cream and tell you that you have 10 minutes to eat this ice cream. Now at that point of time, would you start thinking that what would happen if you cannot eat that ice cream in 10 minutes? Or would you just jump into the ice cream and gobble it up within 1 minute? You would do neither of these. You would apportion your time such a way that you enjoy the deliciousness of the ice cream. Yes or no? So you will take the most out of that ice cream. You savor that ice cream and you'll only focus on eating that ice cream, right? Same with paper. You should enjoy doing the questions and leaving the questions. That is the only task. That is the eating the ice cream task inside the paper. Now you would see leaving the question. What does that mean? I mean, how can we leave the question? Now here comes your second mistake. The second mistake that students commit is to not leave questions when required. Please understand, this is a competitive exam and you know that you do not need to score 100 out of 100 in this paper, right? So there would be questions that you would end up not doing at the end, yes or no, right? And there would be questions that you would do. The trick is to do those questions which you are good at and to leave those questions which you are not very good at, right? This is the trick, na? So then why can't we leave questions? Because of these things. See, this not being able to leave question mistake manifests itself in 2-3 ways. First, you feel guilty about leaving a question. Any question, even if you do not know it, you think, "Arey yaar, let me have a go at it." And this happens at the starting part of the paper. A lot of times it has been seen that if the paper throws you questions at the first 10 questions which are not from your strength areas, people end up wasting a lot of time in that paper. Why? Because they feel guilty about leaving those questions and moving on to the next question, and therefore they end up wasting time on those questions which they have very less idea about. Second, a double guilt builds up when you have invested some amount of time in that particular question and still you are not able to do it. Then the guilt, that is, one is the leaving wala guilt and second is that I have already invested time, how can I leave now, right? So then these two ways majorly this gets manifested in your character. And due to these two, the third thing that happens is that, you see, at the end of the day, if you are not leaving questions which you are not able to do and you are wasting time there, what will happen? Finally, you will have to leave questions unread because the time is up. So there would be questions which you could have done, might have done, but you couldn't even read them because you have not managed your time well. So you feel devastated after the paper, right? How do we solve it? How do we avoid committing the mistake at the first place? First, knowing when to leave. How do you know when to leave? When would you leave a question? When would you do a question? First of all, You see, here your experience of mocks, your practice would help you. You have studied, na? Your knowledge would help you here. Now you have an idea that this kind of question takes 30 seconds for me to understand and another 30 seconds to solve. So let's say in the first 30 seconds you do not get any idea about that question, that means you should leave that question. This type of question I am very finicky about attempting them, so I will attempt them later on, right. These are the decisions that you will have to do inside the paper. And when I say leaving the question, it does not mean that you leave that question forever. No. If you get time later on, you come back and do those questions. But I am not going to waste my time on one question, 3 minutes, 4 minutes of my time and end up with lesser attempts than what I am capable of. That is a crime in a competitive exam. Clear? Right? Okay. So, this practical sense that you have from your practice, utilize it to know when to leave the question. And the next thing is something which is entirely yours, having the guts to leave the question. You will have to have the guts to leave the question. You know, that feeling guilty wala part about leaving any question, that has to go out of you. Why? Because you be practical. If you do not leave questions that you are not being able to do, okay, then you would end up leaving questions that you might have been able to do. So when I say leaving question, I do not mean that leave every question, obviously not. Leave those questions which you are not able to do. Clear? Okay. Now, mistake number 3, having self-doubt. How does it manifest itself? You know, a lot of time it happens that you start the paper and in the first 15 seconds you are done with that question. Okay. So you start feeling that, oh my God, how can I do this question so fast? I normally do not do questions so fast. I am not such a good student. Let me recheck it. Let me revise this. It is not a 10th, 12th graduation paper that you need to revise. You have to do them the first time with full focus and mark it and move ahead. So, rechecking your answer just because you have done it fast is one of the worst manifestation of having self-doubt, and people do that. Second is reading lines again and again, repeating lines while reading questions. I told you in the first mistake that there is another mistake in which repeating of lines or rereading comes into picture. This is that one. When you have self-doubt, when you read it the first time, you assume that you will not be able to understand. Therefore, you again read it. The second time is the only time when you focus to read it to understand. This also happens, right? So, how do we solve it? First, being conscious about this problem. Half of you might not know about this problem at all, right? Now that you know about this problem, that would reinstate your confidence for sure. Second, inside the exam, you have to think yourself as to be a superhero. You have worked so hard for this exam for the past few months. Don't let self-doubt ruin your preparation. That would be again another crime. Okay. So, be confident. Feel that you cannot do anything wrong inside the paper. Now, there is a disclaimer and a caution here. When I say that you have to be confident, I do not mean overconfidence. What I mean is that any decision that you arrive to inside the paper in a logical manner, you have no reason to doubt that. Move ahead and do the next question. That is what confidence is, right? I am not asking you to maro tukka. No tukka marking. Huh? Now, these were the 3 problems that I told you that I would discuss with you and I will give you solution. Now, this is done. Time for the bonus tip. Bonus tip to boost your confidence in these last 3 days. You see, if you have gone through the mock analysis sessions, you know that there is a score that you get after you attempt the mock, and there is a score that you were capable of that you get after you have analyzed the mock in the right way. So, your score that you have got after the exam is here and your capability score is here. So for the next 3 days, you need to think your real score to be this and not this, the capability score, because at the end of the day, that's exactly what you are capable of. Whether you are getting it or not is determined by your test taking abilities, but you have that capability of that getting that score. So collect all the scores, capability scores of the past 5, 7, 8 mocks. Look at them. When you look at them, you would realize that I am not a 70 percentile guy, I am a 90 percentile guy, I am a 95 percentile guy. That would boost your confidence, because the last slide we saw how confidence is important. So that would be all for today. I am sure that armed with these information, you would perform exceptionally well in the upcoming exams. Thank you very much. Bye bye and all the best.